Welcome to the Explainer. I am so glad you're here. We're going to take what at first glance looks like a pretty dense, highly technical regulatory standard and, well, break it down into some clear, actionable insights. Today, it's all about demystifying IFRS S2, the standard that is laser-focused entirely on climate-related disclosures. So how exactly do investors measure climate risk? For the longest time, climate reporting was treated as just a CSR thing, a purely environmental issue. But we need to completely reframe that right now. Today, we are looking at climate reporting not as some peripheral checkbox, but as a critical financial survival metric. It's literally about how money moves. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the what, why, and how of IFRS S2. We're going to cover 1. The global baseline standard. 2. Linking climate to capital. 3. The 4 reporting pillars. 4. Building on past frameworks. And 5. Recent greenhouse gas amendments. Right, moving straight into Section 1, the global baseline standard. At the absolute center of all this is the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standards Board. They're an independent, standard-setting body sitting right inside the larger IFRS foundation. Now think back just a few years. The corporate world was, quite frankly, drowning in an alphabet soup of disjointed, overlapping reporting frameworks. It was like trying to translate a dozen different languages at once. Super confusing for companies and incredibly frustrating for investors trying to analyze the data. While the ISSB was created specifically to put an end to that chaos by establishing a single, unified, global language for sustainability disclosures that are actually decision useful. And the scale we're talking about here is just massive. More than 140 jurisdictions around the world already use IFRS accounting standards for their corporate financial health. By bringing climate-related disclosures under this exact same umbrella, we are witnessing a monumental shift in corporate governance. It basically elevates climate reporting to the exact same level of rigor, scrutiny, and global acceptance as traditional financial accounting. It's a huge game changer. That naturally brings us to Section 2, linking climate to capital. To really get this, we have to look through the investor's lens. The standard makes its priorities incredibly clear. It requires entities to disclose climate risks and opportunities that could, and I quote here, reasonably be expected to affect the entity's cash flows, its access to finance, or cost of capital over the short, medium, or long term. Notice the emphasis there? Cash flows, access to finance, cost of capital. Ultimately, this standard is about how a changing climate hits the corporate bottom line. It's about securing resources and sheer economic survival. This translates into some very specific, measurable threats. Under IFRS S2, companies have to disclose their exposure to 2 distinct types of climate risks. First up, physical risks. Think of the tangible stuff, severe floods shutting down a supply chain, or extreme heat waves permanently wiping out agricultural yields. Then you have transition risks. These are the financial hits that come from the global shift to a lower carbon economy. We're talking aggressive new carbon taxes, massive shifts in consumer preference, or new green tech that makes older business models completely obsolete. Both are very real, and both must be transparently reported. All right, let's look at the mechanics in Section 3, the 4 reporting pillars. IFRS S2 basically guides an organization through a logical implementation story across 4 steps. Step 1 is governance. Investors want to know the processes and controls the board uses to oversee climate issues. Basically, who's actually steering the ship. Step 2 is strategy. How is the entity managing these risks? And let's not forget the market opportunities, because it's not just playing defense, it's playing offense too. Step 3 is risk management. What exact processes are you using to identify, prioritize, and monitor these issues? Are they baked into overall risk management or siloed off somewhere else? And finally, step 4, performance targets and metrics. This is the hard data, tracking progress toward any voluntary or legally mandated climate targets. It's a really brilliant flow, taking you from high-level boardroom oversight all the way down to hard-tracked metrics. Now, what about everything companies have already done? Let's talk about that in Section 4, building on past frameworks. You might be wondering, do companies have to scrap everything and start from zero? Thankfully, no way. Rather than starting from absolute scratch, the ISSB actively honors past global efforts. IFRS S2 fully integrates the recommendations of the highly influential TCFD, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. On top of that, it incorporates industry-based requirements derived straight from the well-established SASB standards. By pulling together these familiar frameworks, the ISSB makes the transition so much smoother for organizations that have already poured time and capital into them. Finally, we have Section 5, Recent Greenhouse Gas Amendments. This part really shows how IFRS S2 is a living, breathing regulatory document. The global rollout is moving incredibly fast. The ISSB initially issued the standard in June 2023. By January 1st, 2024, it was already effective. And by the way, earlier application was totally fine as long as they also applied IFRS S1 for general sustainability. But fast forward to December 2025. Right in the middle of active implementation, the ISSB issued targeted amendments to the greenhouse gas disclosures based on actual real-world feedback. Those December 2025 amendments are super telling. They were designed specifically to reduce complexity, prevent annoying duplicative reporting, and practically lower the cost for companies trying to apply these specific GHG requirements. The ISSB saw the operational burden during this critical rollout phase and offered a practical solution, all without watering down the decision-useful information that investors desperately need. It's honestly a great example of dynamic regulation in action. So, we've covered a massive paradigm shift today. We're moving from a totally fragmented landscape of voluntary guidelines straight into a rigorous, globally recognized standard focused squarely on capital and cash flow. I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. How will your organization adapt to this new era of global financial transparency? Because one thing is absolutely certain for sure, climate disclosure is officially a cornerstone of modern financial reporting. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.